With that, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce to you today's presenters. We have Rick Shaw and Jason Destein. They're going to present on the 6 fundamental questions that identify at-risk individuals on their pathway to violence.
Thank you so very much. Hopefully everybody can hear us okay. Thank you for being here. We greatly appreciate your time and your consideration on this very important topic. Violence in our society today is everywhere. We see it on the news every single day, and it is a growing problem. And what we're going to do today is talk about the 6 fundamental questions that can identify at-risk individuals on their pathway to violence. I am sure many of you have seen or heard about the pathway to violence, the escalation that people go through, grievances, ideations, planning, breach, preparation, and attack. We're going to dissect that a little bit this afternoon in the time that we have, and we are going to show you some ways to be a little more proactive than reactive. So if you have questions, please send them in. We're happy to answer them for you and take those questions as well. I have this up on the screen, so I think we need to reevaluate what prevention really is. And for prevention to become a reality, we have to step back and look at what goes into prevention, what makes prevention happen for us. And from my standpoint, I think for Rick as well, there's 4 things that need to happen. We need to have actionable intelligence. We need to gather information that's in the community. We need to find out what that is. We need to be able to then apply the right tools to help us dissect that information, that intelligence, and make sense of what we're collecting so that we can go through and look at information and do a thorough investigation on the potential warning signs that somebody may be escalating on a pathway to violence. And we'll look at a number of instances that have happened over the past 20 years, and we'll show you some of those patterns and trends that evolve. But you need to have intelligence, you need to have the tools and resources to bring this to life. You need the training for your threat assessment teams to give them the ability to take action and intervene before an attack occurs. So everything we're talking about today, this afternoon, is going to be about how do we get information analyzed faster so that we can intervene quicker and off-ramp that individual or individuals that may be on that pathway to violence, whether it's school shooting or a terror attack. We've got to be able to act quicker and faster and more decisively with better information and intelligence. So really quick, GSX 2021. How many people here planned their own trip to come down here and be part of the show and the sessions? Mostly everybody, so we have something in common, right? I'm no different. I began preparing for this event back in February, maybe even in January, with Rick on what we were going to present, our submissions. We went through a bunch of questions we had to ask ourselves. Should I exhibit or not exhibit? Should I book a hotel? Where should I get it at? What flight do I want? I need a rental car. All these pieces of information we had to go through before we got here to GSX. And how did we do that? We asked ourselves questions. Who do I want to meet with? What do I want to do? When I get there? What social events do I want to go to? The point of all this is that we looked at information in a perspective that set us up for the optimal experience here at GSX in 2021, and whatever year it may be, right? We used information, we used tools, we used our training and our intuition based on past experience in order to get the best experience here. In other words, we did all of that to prevent ourselves from having a bad experience, to prevent ourselves from spending hundreds of extra dollars on places we didn't need to go to. We were focused. So to me, prevention doesn't make a difference if we're trying to prevent a bad experience or trying to prevent a school shooting or a shooting at a church or a synagogue or a religious place, wherever it may be. We use these basic practices of asking these questions every day to have a better experience and prevent something bad from happening or wasting money. Prevention is a mindset. And we've got to change that mindset and apply things that we do every day when we're looking at preventing violence as well. On the pictures, you will see a number of photographs were taken from people's cell phones. The point of all this is that we deal with an undeterred element in our society. We put up cameras and door locks and window tints and visitor management and case management, everything we can do. And those work on about 90% of our society because people are deterred by going to jail, by penalties, by fines, by cameras. They work. But in these cases, where you see a lady hanging out the door in San Francisco with an AK-47, do you really stop and think and say, if she sees my camera outside of my bank or outside of my school, I bet when she sees that camera, she'll put that gun away and go home. Is that reality? No. There is an undeterred element that we deal with that we have to look at intelligence to say, these people show warning signs each and every day. Where are those warning signs? How do I get them? How do I apply them the right way? What tools do I need to identify them quicker, faster, and better so that I can stop this person and prevent them from harming my establishment, whether it's a school, a church, a business, a hotel, whatever it may be. We have got to be able to focus on this undeterred element. It's no secret. There are a growing number of people who don't care about countermeasures. I love countermeasures. I think the cameras are great. I love the advancements. The technology is absolutely amazing and we need it. It's part of the process. But when we think about that undeterred element, when they show up at your front door with their gun or their IED or whatever it may be, they are not going to turn around just because that camera or that door is locked. They have a plan. But we know from research that these individuals on the pathway to violence show their hand. They give us warning signs. They draw pictures. They write. They research. They breach the location. But if we're not aware of those things, we don't document it, and we don't share it with the right people, we are going to miss those warning signs. So we've got to be able to look at who these people are, where they're at, and how to identify them better. After every tragedy that we've seen, we're always left with more questions. That tells me that something is missing in the process for prevention. We are so focused on trying to deter, but deterrence is a last second, a last minute, a last line of defense. Prevention starts out in the community where the warning signs exist. When you stop and think about a tragedy, any one of these tragedies, what is the first thing the media and the police department and investigators do? Where do they go? They are going out into the community talking to the suspect's neighbors, the shooter's friends, his peers, her peers, whatever it may be. They are going out into the community because guess what's out in the community? Intelligence, information, data. They're asking the questions. What did you know about the shooter? What was so suspicious? What didn't you report? What did you know? When did you know it? And that information, they're filling in all the gaps. We have got to find a better way. We've got to look at the tools, and we'll show you that here in a few minutes, which we'll go into. But we're going to address what's missing and why it's missing, and how to fix that. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. These are the 6 fundamental questions that every law enforcement investigative aspects look at when they are addressing any after action report or trying to build a case against somebody. It comes down to how we answer these questions. Regardless of which event, which tragedy took place, there are certain things we know as these events unfold on TV. We know what's occurring. We can see it's a shooting. We know when because we're watching it live on TV. We know where. It's a school, a church, wherever it may be. We know those things, right? We can see how it's unfolded, but we don't always know why the person did what they did. And we don't know who the suspects and victims are until people have been reunited or next of kin has been notified, right? But we know certain things, and that's good. But it really comes down to asking deeper questions. What drove the person to do this? Where did they practice? Where did they get the guns from? All those things are happening in real time as that individual escalates. And if we're not capturing that information, we are always going to be left with one choice, and that is to simply react to their actions. We can't do that anymore. How many people here, quick show of hands, have ever seen or heard of the reaction curve? One person, two people, okay, that's great. I want to show you a couple of examples of what the reaction curve looks like and then introduce you to the prevention curve. Because if we're going to react, there's always a chance to prevent beforehand too. The reaction curve, if you look at it right here, start off on the green and we end in the red. You may have heard about the pathway to violence, Calhoun-Weston model. It's great. Grievance, stressors, ideology, planning, preparation, breach, and attack. This pathway to violence has to be countered with a pathway to prevention. It is very possible. But when the attack happens, what's the first thing we do? We respond. EMS, law enforcement, we get the scene, we try and end the act as soon as we possibly can. We then go into the reunification mode of getting people back with their loved ones, whether it's children, kids, parents, whoever it may be. The operation of the organization then begins to recover, and the investigation starts. It may start sooner in the process, it depends on the case, I guess, but the investigation is there to do what? Find out who, what, when, where, why, and how. After every event, Parkland, Arapahoe, Columbine, it may take 2, 3, 4 years sometimes to get that report out, but that report is based on who, what, when, where, why, and how. And where do they get that information from? They go back to the community, they ask the questions of the neighbors, the peers, the parents, the family, the doctors, the friends, whoever it may be. They have to go back and collect all that information. But I guess my question to you is that information just magically appear after the event? It's already existed. So again, what's missing in the process of prevention? We talk about prevention failing, and that's okay, but if we don't give prevention a chance, it really can't fail because we never really tried to prevent. We can't hang cameras and say that's prevention. It's deterrence. Prevention is an action. You've got to be able to take that action to actively prevent. So I guess the question is this: if there was an alternative to this pathway to violence, if there's a pathway to prevention, would you be willing to listen to that, right? So I took the Calhoun-Weston model, I did the reaction curve, but there's a prevention curve too. And the prevention curve works basically like this, where it goes from the bottom as the individual or individuals escalate down to the bottom right. And that's important because we simply look at the individual on their pathway to violence, we look at the escalation, we collect the information, right, on their pathway. Whether it's stressors, grievances, whatever it may be, we look at all those factors and we collect it in a platform that allows us to streamline the effort and not keep us so disconnected from each other, right? Connecting the dots. Everybody says it. We help do that. Instead of asking the questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how after, if the program and the process allows you to collect it as it's happening in real time, and makes sense of it and organizes the information the right way, we can discover who the at-risk individual is. We can investigate that with a lot more confidence and a lot better intelligence and details. We can collect other pieces of information to build that puzzle piece we talk about. We can connect everything together, allowing us to intervene. And intervening is a critical component of this, right? If we can off-ramp that individual and save their life, we can save the other potential victims' lives as well too. And that's what we're all trying to do, right? That's our profession, is to save people's lives. Prevention is possible, but you got to have the mindset to really focus in and collect this information in the here and the now. I want to walk you through the Arapahoe High School shooting back in 2013. This is important. I will show you the reaction curve and I will show you the prevention curve. 2003, the first warning signs were collected on this individual, on this suspect. This is straight from the Arapahoe After Action Report. You can see from 2003 to 2013, roughly 37 different points of data were discovered or collected along the way. 24 of those events were known to the high school as this individual escalated. You can see in the bold red, they had done 2 threat assessments on this individual in September of 2013, 3 months before the tragedy occurred. 13 events were not known to the school. But if a majority of the events are known before the event took place, what's missing in that process that said to them, there's nothing to see here? I don't understand that. The reaction curve. This is real. This is reality, right? From where the dot on the bottom left to where the curve makes its bend there, the individual escalated for 10 years. What did we do? We responded, we were unified, the school district recovered, we began the investigation. The report came out 3 years after the tragedy occurred. It took them 3 years to find out who, what, when, where, why, and how. We can't wait 3 years after every event to answer these questions. We've got to begin to answer these questions in the here and the now as that individual escalates. We've got to break down those silos. We've got to break down the points of disconnect. We've got to close those gaps. There's only one way to do that. With intelligence, the tools to make it happen effectively, the proper training for your threat assessment team so they can take action as these individuals are on that pathway to off-ramp them. If I put the prevention curve up here, and we reacted in the active manner, we have a much better chance of off-ramping that individual. There's more than enough examples to say this person's in trouble. We have got to intervene and get this person to the bottom right corner versus the top left corner, because the top left is not where you want to be. It will cost you hundreds of millions of dollars in lawsuits. It's not where you want to be. You want to save lives. We've got to change our mindset to be more prevention focused. It is possible, it is reality today, and we'll show you that in a little bit here. But don't get stuck in that reaction curve. That reaction curve leads to a cycle. We look at the after action reports today and we say we need to add more cameras. We need to add more door locks. We need to add more visitor management. We need to add more tip lines. We have all those. It's not working. I teach threat assessment courses online for graduate courses. My students, every time we teach this course, tell me, we need better technology. We need more of this. We need more of that. I respond back, I'm like, look at the evolution of technology in the last 20 years. What technology has stopped any of this? And they pause and they say, yeah, you're right. Technology isn't getting us the information any faster. If we can take our media and our law enforcement and say, go out in the community and find the answers, and they find them, they didn't just magically appear. They were already there. We did not collect it. We didn't connect the dots. We didn't act fast enough. That's on us. Maybe not in this room, but that's on us as a society to change our mindset to be prevention-oriented. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. How we choose to answer these 6 questions will determine whether we react to violence or whether we prevent violence. It is a choice. I hate to say it that way. I hate to be that direct about it, but it is a choice that we have to make. I don't care how many cameras we have. You can't get more security than what happened in Fort Hood. And it still occurred at Fort Hood. No one's going to out-secure Fort Hood. If it can happen there, it can happen anywhere. 1 camera, 1,000 cameras, it doesn't make a difference. If we're not looking for the intelligence and the data on those people on their pathway to violence and the warning signs they always exhibit, shame on us for not preventing better, right? We don't have every answer. I don't want to sound like we're trying to preach. We don't have every answer, but we do have a framework that works. And again, I go back to prevention as a process. Intelligence, tools, training, and action. You've got to have those 4 critical elements in order for prevention to work at an optimum capability. We have to be able to look at how we fill in some of the blanks that you see on the screen up there. People, who's involved, who's our flood assessment team, are they capable? If they're not capable, they shouldn't be part of the team. Who's on the team? Is there leadership? Are they trained? Our infrastructure, can we even conduct an investigation properly to get this information uncovered and make a choice and take action? If we can't do that, we're doomed to fail. What information do we have or not have? Johnny's bullied 50 people. He's punched 10 of them. Okay, who keeps that information? The school? Does it go to law enforcement? Does it go to a counselor? Does the team even see that information? If we don't have information, we can't make informed decisions. Go back to the GSX example. You all took the time to use intelligence to get the best experience here at GSX. I did my best to plan this trip as best I could. And when I got down here to the hotel, I forgot my mouse from my laptop. I had to go buy one. I forgot things, right? My experience then changed. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to go out and get this. Like, I made mistakes, which happens. We're human. But 99% of my trip here has been fantastic. I've done everything I wanted to do because I pre-planned. I was aware. I used intelligence to make decisions. Same thing. Technology. You can't rely on cameras alone to get prevention. They're part of the process, but not the entire process. Is our funding allocated right? Here in Florida, I looked at the school resource officer budget for the state of Florida. It was like $980,000. And when I saw what they had set aside for prevention, it was like $30,000. Is that even aligned? If you're spending all your money on technology for cameras and door locks and nothing on prevention, do you think you're going to prevent? You can't, because your funding is unaligned. Strategies. Do your team, your threat assessment teams know the strategy? Do they buy into it? Do they believe it? If they don't believe it, they're not going to follow it. So you've got to have a strategy that's aligned and brings everybody together. It's a lot of depth to it. We can't cover it all here in the 20 minutes or so that I'm going to be speaking to you before I go to Rick. But we have to answer these questions. We've got to fill in those blanks, because if we don't, we're on the reaction curve, and you don't want to be there. I want to wrap up my section real quick with this little spreadsheet. I'm sure you've seen the Police Foundation. They have a website that's filled with information on averted school attacks. It's fantastic. A couple months ago, I went through that and looked at 162 of those cases. I created a massive spreadsheet of all the data points possible. And I wanted to see, why was it averted? Was it purposeful, or was it by accident or a little bit of luck? A majority of these averted school attacks, and thank God they were averted, but a majority of them occurred either on the same day the person was there to attack, or during the attack that didn't get fully implemented, or a day before. Does anybody here think those aversions were purposeful? No. There was a little bit of luck involved. And I'm glad that luck is good, but luck is not a strategy. You can't rely on luck and hope someone's gun jams, or hope a student sees a gun, reports it, and someone takes action just like that. Luck is not a strategy. I'm glad to have it. I've been lucky myself a few times. I'm glad to have luck, but you can't rely on that. Zero cases were discovered by technology. Not one. Of 162, not one case was averted because they saw it on camera, they got stuck in a door lock, or visitor management locked them out. Not a one. Not one case management system stopped these attacks from occurring. So where did the attacks get stopped at? How are they averted? People. What do people have? They have information. Information is intelligence. A majority of these cases were averted because somebody alerted at the last second Johnny's got a gun. He's walking through the main entrance. I saw Johnny put a pipe bomb or a shotgun in his backpack before the school bus this morning. Let me call someone. A coworker, a student peer, a teacher. People had the information. It wasn't discovered by the latest AI technology or gunshot detection. It was people. They have the information and stopped it at the very last second, which is fantastic. I'll take that every day of the week if we have to. But if people have the information right before, they certainly have that information leading up to it. Go back to the Arapahoe case. 10 years. Information was collected, but that information stayed with that counselor, with that student, with that friend, with that teacher, with that. It did not go, it did not get disseminated effectively to the right people. So, intelligence, tools, training, and action. You've got to have all four of those if we're ever going to have any success in preventing violence. I'm going to turn it over to Rick. He's going to talk about some of the tools, but the intelligence piece, it's there. It is real. It is happening right now. Somebody is on their pathway at this very moment. There is information and warning signs out there that we need to collect better in order to make prevention a reality. We control that. It's our choice. But the prevention mindset has to be there. It can't be focused on reaction anymore. So thank you.